The Peace Center was formerly called ISIS Wiki, and it was founded in 1974. But it rebranded to Women's International Peace Center in the year 2019. We lead in promoting peace and security, and we are informed by the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 and the Sustainable Development Goals. That is Goal 5, which talks about gender equality, and then Goal 16, which is peace and justice. We have a homegrown wave model, which has integrated research, workforce, and then advocacy. We work in the post-conflict communities and conflict-affected communities in Africa and Asia. Today, we are going to have a discussion that is focused on the draft national peacebuilding and conflict transformation policy. Why are we discussing this? The conversation will make us know the draft national peacebuilding and conflict transformation policy is a process of developing a national peacebuilding and conflict transformation policy. That process started in the year 2000 with discussions involving the government, actors, and then the actors from the civil society in Uganda and in East Africa as a whole. The overall objective of the national peace policy is to establish a national architecture for peace building, which will guide state and non-state peace actors in ensuring timely and appropriate response and prevention to potentially violent conflicts in the country. The violent conflicts could be resulting from social, economic, political, and cultural injustices at different levels in the society. Specifically, the draft peace policy has objectives is aimed at creating a national peace-building framework that will guide implementation. It will be like a backup, what we need to look to in the implementation of peace-building related work. It is also aimed at mainstreaming the gender concerns into the peace-building efforts. We know that without gender being mainstreamed into programming, the gender aspects ends up being left out. So the policy is aimed at mainstreaming gender into the peace-building program. The policy is also aimed at establishing a gender-sensitive conflict early warning system and a mediation support unit, that is the SWERA, and also to develop conflict transformation approaches that will guide and systems that will guide and address social, economic, political, cultural, and gender-related injustices that lead to international and cross-border conflicts. Today we are having this conversation. The Peace Center is in partnership with the Uganda Women's Network in convening this program with support from Embassy of Ireland. And the objective of this conversation is to discuss the draft national peace policy, and to use also this as a starting point for a wider conversation to popularize the peace policy and find possibilities of how to move forward with pushing for the peace policy to be passed. This virtual conversation will attempt to unpack some of the following questions. Number one, we are looking at what the peace policy is about and why we need it. What is it that we miss when we don't have the peace policy passed and implemented? Then the next question that we will be discussing will be what prompted the government to develop the draft peace policy, and what are the key processes and challenges faced by the National Steering Committee for Peace. That is a body that coordinates peace initiatives throughout the country. Then the third question that we will be looking at is the role of the civil society in ensuring the peace policy is in place and implemented. Then we will look at the gaps in the peace policy and have a call to action. In the room, we have key speakers. One of the speakers is Ms. Florence Chirabira, who is the National Coordinator, Conflict Early Warning and Early Response Unit. Then the next speaker in the house is Rose Othieno, who is the Executive Director of Conflict Center for Conflict Resolution, that is CICO. It's a civil society organization. Then we have in the room Betty Enango, a representative from Uganda Human Rights Commission. And in the house we have Ms. Jessica Ruth Atta, a peace mediator from Kotido Women's Peace Mediators Network, and she also works with, she's also an executive director of NAROA, that is Nakerero Women's Peace Activist. Myself, I'm Orama Diana, I'm the moderator of the program. I would like to start by asking and talking about our first speaker, who is Ms. Florence Chirabira. Ms. Florence is the coordinator, the National Focal Person on Small Arms and Light Weapons at Ministry of Internal Affairs. Florence is the coordinator for Conflict Early Warning and Early Response Unit at Ministry of Internal Affairs. She is also the coordinator for prevention of violence, conflict, and violent extremism in the country. So we are blessed to have Florence in the room. Florence, thank you so much for coming. We will go straight to Florence. We would like you to tell us why Uganda needs the national peace policy.
Yeah, why do we need the peace policy in the country? First and foremost, informed by the historical perspectives of our country and the colonial distortions of divide and rule and the regional imbalances that were created by our colonial masters. This left deep-rooted feelings and conflicts amongst the people of Uganda. And that said, even the regimes that came in thereafter, they had their different ways of managing society. There was quite a lot of mismanagement of the socio-economic affairs of this country. And to that effect, created deeper feelings and hatred amongst the population of this country. Going on with the current regime, of course, when the NRM came into power, and being informed by the past, there was need to interrogate deeply the root causes of these conflicts, which conflicts have kept on re-emerging. Yeah, like as I talked about the imbalances, the regional imbalances, we've had conflicts reoccurring in several parts of this country with a historical perspective, like the Rwenzori conflict. You know, if you are to go into the Rwenzori conflict, the way the population in that region were clustered under the rule under the Toro Kingdom. Yeah, there were quite a number of tribes that were all engulfed in that kingdom. And somehow those who felt were minority and had got disadvantaged by the colonial masters started grappling and developed feelings of breaking away from the Toro Kingdom to formulate their own kingdom, the Rwenzururu, which we are seeing up to today. But even then, when these people went into their own kingdom, it never solved the issues of Rwenzururu. And still we see conflicts recurring, and the demand for, the divide among the ethnic groups. And elsewhere in the country, in Uganda, what the colonial masters caused to us. So going by that, the current regime had to look at the historical discussions, and then they felt there should be some kind of constitutional reforms and administrative reforms, which reforms would help in building the country as one Ugandan, and also to tease out those deep-rooted issues that have always emerged and address them. And of course, the constitution currently is one which promotes harmony, peaceful, a constitution that looks at peaceful resolution of conflicts, and of course, national unity, peace and stability, among others. So, what is this peace policy that we are all looking at? This is a policy that is a guiding framework for peace-building initiatives by both state and non-state actors. It is a national peace policy that serves to strengthen the practical, legal, regulatory frameworks for conflict prevention, management, and resolution. And in the Ugandan case, it is a policy that will comply with the African Union, IGAD, East African Community, conflict early warning, and early response mechanism. All this is aimed at engaging the whole of society approach to respond to conflicts and mitigate conflicts as and when they occur. I think that's all it has.
Rose is currently the Executive Director of SICO, a position that she has held since 2006. She has rich experience of over 25 years in the area of peace building, conflict resolution, gender advocacy, human rights, and research. Rose is one of the authors of the International Resource Pack on the conflict-sensitive approaches to development, peace building, and humanitarian assistance. She has conducted several women peace consultancies and trainings at national, regional, and international level for organizations like CARE International, UNIFEM, CIDA, USAID PAC, and then ICJLHARA. She's one of the members of the Uganda Women's Coalition for Peace, who participated in engendering of the Juba peace talks in 2008. So she contributed so much in that. Rose has also participated in the formulation of the national and regional instruments on conflict early warning, small arms and light weapons, national peace building and conflict transformation policy that we are talking about today. She is one person who contributed to the development. She has been a board member of many organizations like UWONET, Uganda Action on Small Arms, where she played key advisory role. She has also served as an expert in the International Conference on the Great Lake Regions and in the thematic area of peace and security and social humanitarian affairs. She took part in engendering the protocols of the PAC. Rose led in the training of senior women leaders from 5 countries in mediation. This was in partnership with the Gender Desk of the Burundi Secretariat. ROS is the gender liaison of the Global Partnership for the Prevention of Armed Conflicts Mediation Working Group. ROS was also part of the team of consultants mediating complaints arising from the effects of the Bujagali electric dam construction. We all know where the Bujagali is, that is on the River Nile in Uganda. And that initiative was co-founded by the International Finance Corporation of the World Bank. So, Ross, you're most welcome. We would like you to share with us your perspective as the perspective of the non-governmental organization, that is the civil society.
Thank you very much, Diana. Welcome everyone to this webinar. I'm happy to be here to share a little bit from the experience I've had in working in Peacebuilding. Like I was introduced, I'm from Center for Conflict Resolution. We are not shy to say that this was the pioneer peacebuilding organization in Uganda. We founded in 1995. It's not a women organization, but as we talk about peace building, you realize that there are certain sectors of the population that a lot of times you need to put emphasis on. So we particularly develop specific programs, say for women, for the youth, for school children, like peace education, for people with disabilities, to bring them on board. And this comes now for me to see how the peace policy is going to be helpful. Because a lot of times we are doing this as individual organizations. Of course, all our work is all done in partnership with government. We never do anything without the knowledge and the permission, and sometimes working hand in hand with government wherever we are. And where it is required, like if you have to go work in the district, we normally have MOUs signed so that we are contributing to the programs and the actions of a particular area. And working in peace building as an organization, we realize this need to partner with government, because government is the overall actor in everything. We are here only to supplement. But then a lot of times we find challenges as civil societies, because it's like we are bringing in things that are not quite well practiced in many of the government borders. Citing an example of one of the areas where Diana just read about developing this resource park on conflict sensitivity. During the time we're making consultations about this resource park, we visited several ministries and would want to speak about peace building. And the one first sentence they will tell you, no, we don't have any peace building officer here. We don't have any peace building this. But every work that everybody does can never succeed until there is peace. And that is why we really need the peace building policy to guide, like it has already been highlighted, to guide the implementation of all the actors. And I must reiterate the fact that this actually goes in line with, starting with the Declaration of Human Rights, where you are talking of freedom, justice, peace in the world. You can never have peace in the world if there is no guidance on how this peace is supposed to be nurtured, developed, implemented. Then when you come down to the Constitution, it is, even in the preamble, it is stated that, I will not repeat it, but there is somewhere where it says there shall be established and nurtured institutions and procedures for the resolution of conflicts fairly and peacefully. So we have this as a requirement, it is embedded within our constitution. But very often, because these documents exist, they are piled somewhere, not even the people who are supposed to be working with them refer to them, we get challenges. Going back to one of the statements that about our participation in the Juba peace process, together with that time it was ISIS Wiki and many of the documentation, SICO was more of the capacity building, UWONET was our coordinator again. We had challenges when the peace talks were taking place in Juba, that it was not at all gendered. And when we came back to our, of course we were now talking with the Ugandan government representatives, they didn't understand what we wanted by engendering the peace process. And the first thing that was done was to bring in a lady who was actually a victim. But what we wanted was participation. It took them time to understand that. But through the unity, the collaboration and the capacity building, the women, the Peace Coalition was able to influence the appointment of a gender expert to the peace talks, and then a representative to highlight gender on the government team. And this was a success. And until now we are being told, need this update. Until now we are being told that was one of the best engendered peace talks in the world because of the participation that the women had. So as civil society, we need the support, but also the backup, like you rightly put it, where we can say resolve. And what helped us succeed in the participation in Juba was the resolution 1325. If we didn't have anything to quote, maybe they would have just told us, you go back and prepare the next meal. That's what the men usually tell the women. But we backed on the resolution 1325, where our governments are signatories. I don't think we had a national action plan then, but with that we were able to say, no, we have to do that. And then the women, like we always do, the civil society went and consulted the women, mainly in the areas that had been affected by the conflict, northern Uganda, but also took examples from women who had gone through similar experiences in Kasese. So we were able to bring the voices of these women straight to Juba, to these people in the peace talks. And I remember when we played the voices to them, they said no. That was towards, I think, Christmas. And we're telling them we want peace by Christmas time. Of course, two more years to get it. But at least we're being heard. So we're saying with the existence of such an architecture, which we believe, of course, when we go through the draft policy, it's really well designed and it's going to go down to the ground level. If it's really well implemented, it will be a long way into transforming our societies. This peace policy also goes in line with our vision 2040, the transformed society. Of course, I will refer to the national constitution. It's interesting that we have very many policies, but we don't have a national peace policy. And for us who are advocating for this peace policy, we are saying, actually, most of these policies should be within the national peace policy. We are talking of transitional justice, but you need an overall. We are talking about the gender policy. We are talking about, land policy. All this, and why I talk about land, one of the examples that Florence gave was the conflicts around land. But once you have this overarching policy that all the others can come under, it will be very, very easy for us to work with. And we are happy with this development because it's going to help a lot in the coordination of the work between the different actors, and also to reduce on the duplication or oversight, because sometimes you might duplicate in one area and yet give a gap. But once we are well coordinated, we believe there will be a better and more sustainable impact on the project.
Thank you so much. Can we have the next presenter, who is Ataje Skaro? She's the Executive Director of Nakerero Women Peace Activists, that is based in Karamoja, specifically in Kotido District, an NGO that has existed for over 20 years, doing peace building, peace related work on ground. She worked as, she served in the civil service, that is as a stenographer. Then she participated in a number of conferences, including the International Conference on Promoting the NGO Women. That is the role of NGO in promoting women's leadership. That was in the US in 2012. Then she participated in leading on the peace and security in the Greater Horn of Africa under the G40. She's a member. Then she's also chairperson for the Women Peace Mediators Network in Kotido, that is in partnership with the Women's International Peace Center She's a defenders. She's a member of defenders. She's defending women human rights defenders in her region. And she's a focal person for PRDP2, that is for Karamoja, and the Women's International Peace Center. She's the one who was representing the Karamoja sub-region under the PRDP program that the Peace Center was monitoring some years back. She is the vice chairperson of a civil society network back in Karamoja. Then she is here to share with us a life experience from the perspective of a woman peace builder in Karamoja. Jessica, you're most welcome.
Taking you back to Karamoja region, looking at the perspective of Karamoja, when you look at Karamoja setting, we are an ethnic group that we keep cattle, we are pastoralists. In our pastoralism, we have a number of issues that we experience in Karamoja. When you look at Karamoja, we border Kenya, we border South Sudan, and we have a lot of things that we share in common with the neighbors who are around us. Karamoja region, we have always experienced a lot of issues in Karamoja. Let me take you back to what we as women of Karamoja are experiencing as a woman. We have a lot of things that we experience in Karamoja. When I take you back to disarmament 1, when they disarmed the women, the warriors who had guns, women participated a lot in the disarmament program. When you look at now, the disarmament program that is existing now, women are not so much participating in the disarmament program. When you look at this time round, what we experience as women, there is a lot of cattle raiding. In the cattle rustling, there are many things that happen. Initially, our traditional cattle rustling, we used to experience that when the animals are raided from a particular location, it goes to a particular location and it is got immediately. But right now, when they raid animals from Karamoja, you follow the footmarks and you not get the footmarks. So it has gone commercial. We don't know who are those people who are doing this, but for us, we still believe as women, being a woman, you are at home and you don't participate a lot. But when you look at also these cattle raids with the mothers, we stay with these children and we stay with these men. And when you look at the cattle rustling now, many of these children, many of these men, they grown up, they from 20 or 30, most of them have died. You find that now it's the youth, the young children are the ones now going for cattle raids. And the cattle raids right now, when you look at even a child who has gone to school, when he comes back, issues of school fees, a child goes out and going for raids. What has also made it escalate so much is COVID. When all the children came back, most of our children have been killed because of these conflicts. Because of Corona, children are at home, so most of the children also have died because of this. Also, the young women, when you look at the women are experiencing a lot of issues, like you can be inherited more than 5 times. You are inherited, your man dies, you are inherited with another. Tomorrow, another one is inheriting you, another one is inheriting you, and many orphans. You give birth to this one, before even you give birth, this one has died, or you give birth, tomorrow he goes and is killed. So this has really made us women so much having a lot of thoughts in our minds that what is all this that is happening? What is the government thinking about us as women of Karamoja? Because our voices heard as women, like our voices of the Karamojan women are not heard, because you find that we are all the time, we shy up even from talking, because when you talk, they say, they pinpoint you, and they say, okay, why are you saying this? What happened? You are even killed. Like right now, people are being killed. Like some 2 weeks ago, one of our mediators was beaten badly. She was beaten because she's a counselor and she's also a mediator. She was beaten and even her arm was broken. So women are shying from even talking. They really fear to talk, because when you talk, you are killed. You find many homes are child-headed. And you also know what we mean by being a child-headed mother. You find that a lot of things, these young kids are the ones who are now heading families in their homes. I'm also saying this, I really feel that the peace policy, when you look at us back there at home in Karamoja, we don't have I don't see any guide to government, because what guides always, even an organization, even in church, what guides is the Bible. Like we don't have the policy that guides. When you look at even at times when we go for peace, when there is peace building, and we now request like the government to give us transport, even refreshment to go for this dialogue, they cannot afford, because there is no budget, first of all, in the district. They don't have the budget, and there's no policy guiding. So for me, I look at the peace policy should be pushed for approval so that it guides, basing on us, because I don't know in other regions, but looking at our region of Karamoja, I think the peace policy will guide the cattle rustling, because right now, I think even the approach of disarmament is disorganized, because we don't have something to guide even government. I think they just look for any way of approaching, but it is not there. So I really feel that we need a guide, something that guides government. When we are doing something, it directs us to push on with the cattle rustling that is now going out of hand. And also urge government that if there is going to be disarmament, and I know it has started, if we are starting forceful disarmament, it should be done at once. I feel that government should think of us as like any other country or another district, because we are left there saying maybe the brothers are fighting, they don't care about us. Can the government also look at us? Like for us, the women, we are the ones suffering. The men don't care, they can even go to another country and stay there. But for you, a woman, you cannot rush, cannot go anywhere with the children. We are really suffering. This government should think about bringing the soldiers to disarm the Karamojons. I think we are just taking this lightly because they don't care. They're just saying their brothers are fighting. These are not brothers. If the government can go and secure other countries, why not your child? We are children of Uganda. Why don't they also rescue us as mothers of Uganda? We also participate in all these elections. We have always participated. This is our cry as women of Karamoja. We have a lot of things to speak about this, but we are shut down on several occasions. So I really look at this like cattle rustling is something that is disorganizing even education of children. You find leaders are being killed. There is no proper coordination. There is no proper policy. That's why all the leaders are being killed. So looking at all these processes, for me what I'm looking at here is the issue of the policy to be approved by Parliament. It should be approved immediately. So if it means as the women also coming to participate, I think our voices also should be heard. If it means with the grassroots women to come from Karamoja, to come and participate, we shall come and participate in the pushing of this policy. This policy has stayed for all these years. Every year this policy has not been approved. That's why we are suffering down there. We have a lot of things that is being done. Women we can't develop. Our children can't go to school. You cannot go to the farmland. Like this year, no one has gone to the farmland. No one has gone to the farmland because for us, we are with the women, the fertile land is far a bit. You cannot go to that land unless there's peace. So with all this, I urge first to stop here. I will still add when need comes. Thank you so much.
Sharing with us your experience as a woman peace builder on ground in Kotido district, and you've talked on behalf of Karamoja as a whole. We have all heard from the speakers, and they have all highlighted that without the peace policy in place, we lack a policy guideline. We lack what will coordinate the peace building initiatives. Everybody does their things their own way. There is no convergence. But, and also, most of the peace building initiatives are done in ad hoc basis or in a reactionary manner. And we end up duplicating interventions and wasting resources instead of having a guided move. Then there is also insufficient resource mobilization because we do not have an enabling law. And we keep seeing several conflicts re-emerging since they are not well handled, they are not resolved conclusively. So that means we really need the peace policy, and we need it passed and implemented. We've also seen how women have suffered in Kotido. Jessica has mentioned most of them. Imagine being a woman being inherited by over 5 men. Because this one dies, you get onto another one. It is also a tricky situation for women, both women and men. And we've also seen from the discussion that there is no way total peace or sustainable peace can be achieved without a guiding framework. Would like to go to the next question. That is, I would request Ms. Florence Chirabira to come on the floor again and share with us the specific, the mission and then the overall goal.
Thank you so much. The mission for the National Peace Policy that we desire is to promote a culture of peace among all Ugandans, to be able to identify, prevent, manage and transform conflicts fairly and comprehensively for a sustainable and equitable development, and also promote harmonious coexistence among the Ugandans. The overall goal to that is to provide a peacefully stable and harmonious Uganda where conflicts are resolved fairly, amicably, and national resources are shared equitably. Specific about it is that a national policy is a policy that creates a national institution devoted to building a culture of peace, conflict management and resolution, and preventing them from negative reoccurrence. It is a policy with an inclusive national and subnational infrastructure for sustainable peace, peace building and conflict resolution established, reflecting the context specifics of each region in Uganda. It is a policy that ensures that the rights and contributions of women, youth, children, people with disabilities, vulnerable groups, the elderly, the orphans, and the minorities are recognized, protected, and promoted above all. Then it's a policy that calls for cultural and faith-based institutions and indigenous peace building and conflict resolution structures and approaches that are included in the peace processes. And it is also a policy that emphasizes coordination mechanisms, existence of coordination mechanisms, that defines the roles of all stakeholders, government and non-state actors in peace building, national reconciliation, conflict resolution at all levels. It is a policy whose mechanism is very sensitive to address historical grievances, as earlier on mentioned, the deep-rooted structural grievances that still are around and manifest into the current conflicts that we are seeing today. A national peace policy that is well funded, I'm talking this from the government point of view, we need funding to coordinate and drive this policy and the processes in peace building. It's a mechanism for, it also provides mechanisms for regular monitoring, reviews of the policies established and operational. So that's how I could describe this to a common person. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Florence, for sharing with us. In the house also we have Miss Betty Enango. Betty is the Regional Human Rights Officer, Jinja Regional Office. She works with the Uganda Human Rights Commission. That is in the Jinja office. She was in Kampala, but recently she joined the Jinja office. She holds a bachelor's degree in mass communication from Makerere University and a master's degree in human rights and democratization from the University of Pretoria, that is in South Africa. And she attended several advanced courses on human rights. I would give an example of conflict management and mediation, that is in the East Africa Center for Conflict Resolution in Cape Town. She also participated in disability rights in an African context, that was in the University of Pretoria, South Africa, and the Civil Society Law course, Center for Human Rights, University of Pretoria, that is still in South Africa. She is passionate about social justice for vulnerable groups, especially children, persons with disability, women, and then the elderly. Her area of expertise include research and investigations and documentation, human rights protection and promotion, human rights monitoring and reporting. She's good at peace, conflict prevention and mediation. She's also good in a good volunteer. Like she has volunteered to come and join the discussion today. So Betty is going to share with us the perspective of the peace policy and conflict transformation, which is focused on in this peace policy. Betty, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Diana, our moderator, and thank you for elaborating who I am. It is true, I was in the headquarters, then I was eventually transferred to Jinja on a promotion. So I'm stationed at our regional office in Jinja as the head of the regional office. Otherwise, by rank, I'm a principal human rights officer. I want to thank you, my colleagues. You have already highlighted the purpose, why we need this policy, and some of the key focus of the policy that I am also going to stress on. So, as a human rights defender, first of all, I have fallen in love with this policy in a way that the policy does recognize the importance of interactions of various stakeholders, government and various stakeholders in the peace building and transformation processes. It also recognizes the role, the need to involve the citizens in peace building processes. For me, as a human rights defender, this is a plus because it is emphasizing the principle of participation. And when we participate in a discourse, it becomes very easy for us to own up the interventions that are derived and eventually the achievements that we realize from a discourse that we are pursuing. And this also for me is in line with what Rose had stipulated earlier on, the national aspirations that are found in the national objectives and principles of state policies. Some of the focus is also guided by other important documents like the National Vision 2040, where we aim at moving from peasantry level to a middle income status. So the focus of the policy is on the involvement of the various stakeholders. And the policy also focuses on the need for us to enhance gender sensitivity in the way we do business in peace building and conflict transformation. I think our colleague from Karamoja has highlighted the experiences from the women's perspective. So, and you have seen she has brought it out very clearly that there are so many glaring issues that affect women as we do business. And yet, culturally, it is very easy for women to be excluded in some of these processes. So it is very important that we involve every stakeholder, the women, the youth, the PWDs, as Rose has highlighted, because that will enhance our level of contributing towards achieving a just and peaceful society. And usually what happens is that when conflicts are happening, usually the solutions to some of the resolutions to these conflicts are better usually driven by the people that are affected themselves. They usually have the answers. So the fact that we are involving a range of stakeholders in the peace building and conflict transformation process, that is the main focus of this policy, it is a plus. We also, the policy also focuses mostly on the need for us to provide a mechanism of streamlining the way things are done. This has already been done. So the focus is to enhance that or to fill that gap, because right now we do not have an institution that coordinates all of us. It is very true that there are so many interventions, that there's a lot of work being done in trying to encourage peace in our society, and this is being done ad hoc, as Diana has already said. So the fact that the policy provides a mechanism for coordination and for synergy among stakeholders involved in peace building is a good thing, which we should embrace, and therefore also embrace and accept and facilitate that the establishment or the coming into place of this policy, so that our roles are guided and we do work in a streamlined manner. The policy does not only encourage the establishing of that coordination mechanism, it actually identifies the government entity that should be able to coordinate us, and that is Office of the Prime Minister. The other focus of the policy that is really very important, that we want our viewers and listeners out there to know, is the fact that in the policy encourages or guides stakeholders to be conflict sensitive when doing business. As we say, as Florence had already highlighted, some of the root causes of conflicts in our society, they range from political, social, and economic disagreements. So as we do business, as we are developing interventions for development in our country, we need to be sensitive at every level that a potential conflict may arise. And if they arise, how do we deal with them before they escalate to violence? So that sensitivity focus is good in that it helps us to identify some of these conflicting situations before they escalate, and we are able to provide solutions to them. And hence we are able to promote peaceful coexistence. The policy also, the fact that we are now thinking about an institution or a coordination mechanism will eventually lead to consistency and efficiency in the way we do things, especially when it comes to drawing appropriate interventions, and a way in which the policy enhances that consistency and efficiency is that the policy has already guided on some of the structures that are really very important to be established at the national level, regional, sub-regional, and village level. When those are established, then you can be sure that there is going to be meaningful interaction between stakeholders.
Thank you so much, Betty, for highlighting that the peace policy requires long-term intervention and holistic approach, and also the need to define peace in a women's perspective. So, Rose is going to share with us the key values and principles that underlie the peace policy, and also share with us how the policy considers gender issues.
This policy, as we have pointed out, seeks to enhance gender sensitivity in a transformative manner, looking at transforming conflict, mitigating, management, or resolution, taking into account all the gender perspectives. And when I say gender, we are talking not just about the women alone, but women and men, and within that, the different categories, whether because sometimes we are putting women and men as two groups, but within there are several subgroups. All these many times have different needs and challenges. So the policy is supposed to be looking for that. And through the mechanisms that are provided for coordination and the synergy among the different stakeholders, like you've said, we are happy that this policy is bringing on board all these various stakeholders at village, regional, national, and even international level, because we have also development partners. As we know very well, they've never left us. They are always part of development. In fact, a lot of the work that went into the development of the policy has been through the support of development partners, especially the UN bodies. We continue to appreciate them. But they can never leave us, because that's why they are there. That's why I was quick to bring in the Declaration of Human Rights, because all these UN bodies have particular emphasis on different specifications, where I know UNICEF was very much on board. They supported a lot before the benchmarking. I think there were consultations that UNICEF supported. We also yes, again, the policy is intended to enhance that consistency, like Betty has said, and the efficiency with which we implement things. And once the policy has been developed fully and passed, then this funding that that was brought out earlier is very, very key, because there is no way you are going to talk about any gender, whatever, sensitivity when you are not funding those. Because there have been a lot of efforts to bring on board all these gender issues, but as long as there is a limited or lack of funding, then implementation cannot take place. And we believe that because this has brought on board the coordination mechanisms, we'll be able to look into all that. I don't want to risk repeating anything, but we can always come with more of that. Yes.
Thank you so much, Florence. We would like again to focus the discussion on what we expect to change when the peace policy is approved and is being implemented. Florence, can you share with us your view from the perspective of Ministry of Internal Affairs? What do you expect?
We expect to have strengthened the structures at national level and sub-national levels to deal with the issues as and when they are detected. And of course, we also expected to have more coordinated and sustained approaches in peace building and conflict transformation. And we also expect to address and interrogate the underlying causes of conflicts in Uganda and even beyond, because we even have the cross-border dynamics that are always coming to in. And then also we expect to build capacity, to enhance capacity building of actors, all actors, state and non-state actors. Yeah, from national level to sub-national levels and up to the community levels where conflicts actually take place.
Yes.
And we also expect to have enhanced response to early warning issues, because what has been in place always is that there is always early warning. Yes, we get information early enough, but then we've been having challenges in response. So there has been a gap in the response, and this is what we expect now to improve in the area of responding to issues of early warning. And above all, we expect to have a robust early warning and other response initiative in the country.
Thank you, Florence. Maybe you could also share with us from the perspective of Uganda Human Rights Commission.
Actually, Florence has mentioned everything. So I would just wrap it up that this policy actually will help to change the way in which peace building and conflict transformation interventions will be done. Because then it directs on it directs right from the village level to the secretariat level who is supposed to do what, you know. And in that way, we will have consistency, we will have efficiency, we will also be able to avoid wastage of resources, because then the secretariat will be able to guide on who is supposed to do what, when, how, and then at the end of it all, we may also be able to measure the achievements that we have gained at the end of the day. So for me, it is really going to change the way, it's going to transform the way in which we will be doing business in peace building and conflict transformation.
Okay. Those you could share with us what the two have not shared from the CSO perspective. What do you expect to change?
Of course, I would like to start by re-emphasizing what they have said, that they should come to pass. Yeah, because that's what we are all looking out for, a vibrant structure. You know, there is putting a structure in place and calling it its name and stopping there. We want vibrant structures, and that's where the civil society is going. You know, for us, we don't have much protocol. We jump here and there, in and out. Anytime, you know, open for us. We want vibrant structure. Because, as we know, conflict doesn't sit and wait for you. You know, neither does peace have a boundary. Our sister here already told us about the cross-border areas, you know. When you go there, you don't see that line of Kenya and Uganda. You don't, you know, apart from a border customs post where they exist. Otherwise, you don't. So peace and conflict don't have boundaries. And we need the vibrant structures in place, which we believe we can now advocate for, because we shall have something to run around with. But above all, we need transparent dialogue. Why do I say this? I'm talking as a civil society. I'm not an activist per se, but I'm an actor. You know, sometimes we work with government, like I said, very well, but there is a limitation to what you may want to say in front of a certain official and not. But when it comes to conflict and peace building, let's agree that these are, would I say, natural things that you have to say. They may hurt, you may not like them. Like we say when you are, we have, I'm glad you are there, an expert, all of you are experts in peace building. We always say that is, people outside they say enemies. For us we don't have those terminologies, all of us here. They are parties. But normally the other party knows they are right and that other party is wrong. Well, the other party thinks the same. So what is the problem? Let's sit and dialogue transparently to come and get the solutions to the problems. We're asking about the Karamoja issue. Year on, year out, things are just changing. What is the problem? It's because we've not done the complete analysis of the why. You know, in complete analysis, you ask why. As long as you still have an unanswered why, you are not there yet. So let's go. Why? Because why? Because until you can't ask, then we know we can move. So this is what I request from the partnership with the government, that let them be free to listen to whoever. Be it a Karachuna, I hope you are around here know the terminology. Others may not. These are the youth warriors in Karamoja. Be it a Karachuna, listen to him. Why does he want to keep on to the gun? Why? Why doesn't he want to do other things? Maybe he doesn't know, or maybe he doesn't have an alternative. Others will tell you, we used to go to Karamoja to do peace building work as a peace building organization. Don't what we do. And we teach and do these games and then they ask me, are we going to eat peace? So of recent, we have managed to convince some of the donors to bring in what we call connectors for peace. You can't call it income generation because they don't give relief. But you bring these youth together to do something together. Maybe they are knitting, or if you have some money, some of them have been enabled to buy borders and as a group to connect them together. And while they are doing that, they are not thinking about the peace. So can we have open dialogue to get the root causes? So these structures should be very, very implementable. Then the other thing I want us to call for is sufficient funding. Like I said, all the processes that I've known around the peace platform, around the international conference, Great Lakes region, talk of C1, talk of all those IGAD processes, small arms, light weapons, friends and partners. Let our governments also put in something. Because there is a bit that maybe the partner cannot see easily, but we here at home can see. Let the government commit something, and possibly with these policies in place and structures existing, then we should be having more funding. And the other thing I would like goes to capacity. And this goes for both the CSOs, but more for our government partners. Very often, we are lucky that you have the likes of Betty and Florence with us who know our work and they know that we need each other. Many other government officials, but officially in those offices, they see civil society as I don't know what. I remember during the development of the National Development Plan 2, there was a slot for civil society to sit on, I think on the security, whatever it was, under something, whatever. When one of my colleagues went to sit in that committee, one of the government officials, a security person, but what are you doing here? This is the domain of, you know, because we need to make some of our actors understand what peace is. What is peace? When there is no gunshot, when there is no child crying, that doesn't mean there is peace. Peace goes beyond, and that is something we need to keep on inculcating in the minds of our people, that peace is more than that. A holistic approach. You may have the roads, yes. You may have the hospitals, yes. But there's no medicine. The nurse is coming at 1 o'clock, you know. So there are so many things that contribute to this. We need holistic peace. And this is something that we do need to understand. And I hope that with the establishment, the passing of this policy, we may even end up with a National Peace Institute. We have now a diplomatic institute, we have all these other institutes, but people think, and yet peace is in all the ministries. every ministry needs to understand this. So maybe over the years we shall have even a national institute for peace building, and then we shall see how do you mainstream people, checkpoints of sorts, you know. But maybe to go even beyond, because checkpoints also has limitations. I've never gone there, unfortunately. But this one should take on as many people, because peace is part of us. This is everyday life.
Peace is can be achieved when everyone is involved.
Yes.
It requires long-term and collaborative approach. Can we hear from a women's perspective?
Yeah. Okay.
In 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you so much. What I expect is this policy should guide disarm the neighboring countries like South Sudan and Kenya, those border, for us to have peace. Yeah. Then we should also have a budget for peace building that engage women and youth in peace building. There should also be focus in Karamoja as being agents and be handled differently. Then build synergy. Then when this policy is approved, it should be implemented. Yeah? It shouldn't be just pushed for approval and it is not implemented. And we should also create, I think government should create a department for peace building of its own, so that we have that department like any other department. Yeah? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica, for sharing with us that. She talked about a focus on Karamoja. I would like to, maybe Florence could share with us, how would the peace policy boost the current efforts towards curbing the cattle rustling or the interethnic rivalry, the tensions that on land, and then the insecurity in Karamoja? How do you think it will boost?
Yeah, the policy will boost in that it will inform all the other policies and government programs that are at play. And it will enhance coordination, harmonization, and sustainability of implementation of programs in Karamoja. Say in terms of disarmament, it should not only look at disarming with removing the guns like what is happening right now, but also think of alternatives, like she talked about income generating activities, livelihood support. There is livelihood support ongoing, but it's done in tokens by Ministry in charge of Karamoja. It should also think of trauma healing, mindset change of these people who think without a gun, then they may not have life in themselves. And also a policy will also inform the other policy of disarmament and thinking of a wider disarmament program beyond the borders. Yeah, because we shall not be seeing a lot going on our side and yet the other side something else. So this is what I see in this policy framework once it is.
Okay, thank you so much. My colleague in the civil society said that she was asked that why are you here? This is not where you're supposed to be. And I know that the civil society represent women and represent the Ugandan citizens as a whole. So how will the implementation of the peace policy promote women's participation in conflict prevention, conflict resolution, and in peace building? Florence.
Yes, this policy is all encompassing. Like we said, it takes cognizance of the women's role in peace building, youth, the elderly, children who end up being victims or misused in these vices within the region. So it actually is all encompassing. It will tease out the key roles of women in peace building, and then the youth to take lead also course, you cannot be at the back and then you are talking of peace. You need to take lead and also identify role models. Yeah, the models in the region. Who are then the actors, and also identify influencers. Who are the gatekeepers? I mean, they call them gatekeepers. Who are the gatekeepers? Like, if you want to bring to engage the society, you first imagine who are the influencers in this region that I can first engage so that the others can follow. Yes.
Thank you so much. We expect as civil society that the peace policy from the introduction, we say that it started with a discussion from state and non-state actors, including the civil society in Uganda and then in East Africa as a whole. So at the end of it all, the implementation should also give space for both the civil society, the government actors and women. All the vulnerable population should also take part in the implementation. They should be considered in all aspects, such that we see the peace we have dreamt of, the peace we have envisioned as a country. We will be able to see, feel, and live it. Yeah. So we would also like, now we've talked about what the peace policy is, what we expect of it, what is, we need to also know. The peace policy, the process started in 2000, but it is 2022, it is still in a draft form. I would like Florence to share with us the current status of the draft peace policy. Where is it? When will it be approved? And when do we expect it to be implemented? I know that your office is charged with the mandate and you're leading in that area. Maybe you can share with us the current status.
Thank you so much. The current status, I know this is where everybody wants to hear from me.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it is still in the draft form and still with the Office of the Prime Minister. But that said, of course, this was a policy that was informed by a number of studies, very enriching, and of course had wider consultations across regions, and even had to learn from other countries that have made it better in the area of democratization, and that is Uganda. But as of now, I'm not able to tell whether this document was enriched further beyond the regional consultations, because when you look at it, it's what it is, but I don't see something very special from Ghana in this. And yet the learning had to cover a number of areas, including electoral reforms, including the peace-building architecture, and then the SDGs, implementation of SDGs, which is also very key in peace-building. But from what I know is that our ministry started engaging the Office of the Prime Minister from the time we had access to this draft. I briefed my peers about it. I shared this draft with the technical officers in the Department of Policy and Planning. And then, of course, a write-up has been made to PS Office of the Prime Minister to request for this policy. We are actually requesting for it, not even finding out what it is, what would the status, because they will always give us the status as it is. But our interest, we want it out of our Office of the Prime Minister. And then, of course, the ministry now takes lead in having it further. And now, as part of next steps, we would want this draft peace policy, much as it is still in its raw form, at least to be validated. Yeah, by all key stakeholders, including civil society and ministries, departments and agencies, and other development partners. Then also, we would also want to give this draft policy a wider focus beyond what it is to look like. Because now we want to consider the emerging concerns like the SGBV, sexual gender-based violence, like my sister Rose Jessica mentioned in Karamoja, the role of women, the current status, how they are victimized during this disarmament, and how best can their roles be recognized in all processes of peace building. Then we have, of course, issues that are quite now glaring, like unemployment. Yeah, unemployment. Most of the youth educated and same elite. So the peace policy needs to look too much into that. And of course, the climate change issues that are now high on the agenda, that are driving actual conflicts, especially in the Karamoja region, and also the tensions over the oils and minerals. Yeah, you know what is happening in the elsewhere, not only in the Mujono region. I understand every part of this country has some reserves of this, and now you imagine how government is coming in to take control and even dispossess people of their land because of the underlying resource. And of course, conflict over water pasture, cattle rustling, and then of course dealing with the issues that have never been addressed. Yeah, like under the transitional justice policy, there are a number of issues that are still hanging. The policy is out, but is it easier to have that policy implemented the way it is? Yeah. So those are the issues that we are looking at as our next step. And then of course, we also look at taking a key role of coordinating the state and non-state actors in completion of this policy and ensuring its implementation. And then of course, thereafter we need to also have develop M&E framework with measurable indicators that will help us assess progress in the implementation of this policy. And also, yes, yeah, she's bringing in the aspect of widows, orphans. That is, I think, covered under SGBV.
Yes.
Gender-based violence, yeah, the inheritance talked about. And then, of course, linking this initiative to existing programs that are in place. We have small arms and ID police control program from where I come from. We have the amnesty program that is also ongoing, and then the program on prevention and curbing violent extremism, yeah, which we also coordinate. Yeah. That's what I can talk about.
Thank you so much for giving us the hope that it's moving. It's going to move, and then there are plans which are underway. Then we are also going to have it validated, and the validation should involve a wider range of the representation, and then the aspect of the M&E also will curb our fear of having a policy in place and it's not implemented. That will be very important to be considered. Then I would also like to bring to our attention that the peace policy is covering a number of conflicts. The nature of conflict that is captured in the policy itself is wide. It almost talks about everything that we see as conflicts in the country. For instance, there is land. It talks about land conflict. It talks about historical conflicts that Florence shared with us at the beginning. It talks about the ethnic conflicts that is happening in the communities we live in, election-related violence, religious intolerance, tension between central government and cultural institutions. We are also seeing it happening, so it is covered in the policy. Sexual and gender-based violence is covered. High unemployment, climate change, it is a concern, and it is in this policy. Then we also see tension over oil and other minerals. It's happening in the country. but is covered in the policy. We see conflict over water, pastures, and cattle rustling. When I was sharing in Kotido, the women told me that is ours. So they were happy that theirs is also captured in the policy. The regional instability is captured, cross-border conflicts. We've had the discussion, people sharing about the aspect of disarmament, only within Uganda, and then leaving the Gansi with the Toposa of South Sudan, and then the Turkana of Kenya, which is also an issue. There is a cross-border aspect is captured in the peace policy. Then management and governance issue is also captured. Class conflict and lawlessness is part of it. And reintegration challenges is also captured in the peace policy. Then if we look at the mission, which is peaceful, harmonious, democratic, and prosperous Uganda, I think every Ugandan would love to have the peace policy in place and implemented. So, having the peace policy is what all the members in the room have cried for from the beginning of the discussion. Having it implemented is what we need as Ugandans. We would like to go to the next session after this wonderful conversation. I request maybe we will start with Betty. What roles can each one of you, like the Uganda Human Rights Commission, play in ensuring that the peace policy is brought to life and is promoting a culture of peace across Uganda?
Thank you, Dan. Like I said, the peace policy really has got very rich aspirations. And so I think the role that we can each play that is very vital is for us to continue preaching the gospel that is spelled out in this the peace policy. In essence, we will be able to popularize it. We should be able to popularize it. We should continue coordinating as the stakeholders who are advocating for this to be passed until we achieve our goal of having it passed. It's put in place and we gain results from it. Because like we have been mentioning in the tale, the roles played by each and every one of us is very vital. So we need to work as a team. Let's continue advocating for this.
Thank you so much. We've heard from our representative, that is Betty from the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Can we also hear from Florence? Yes.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, of course, Florence now is like the
the leader of government business in the discussion.
As the Minister of Internal Affairs, we take leadership of this role in coordination and implementation of the peace policy. And like my friend Betty has talked, then we also need to popularize it and disseminate it to the wider public. And I don't know, dissemination or localization of the policy to the people down there in the language that is really understandable to them if we have to move together as a country. That's what I can say.
Thank you.
And I think the fact that it's not yet passed, we need to, the advocacy should be focused really. They should be targeted properly to the influencers that you talked about earlier. Yes, they should push.
When is the time frame?
I know that opium can't be left out of this. We need to engage them. Because
I must say that the process has been slow, but also we need to appreciate that opium, which has been housed in this policy, they had a number of setbacks and they didn't have the right person to engage at the time. Yeah, so you know what happened, the PSCs were all, you know, the commissioner who was actually handling this document also was interdicted. Then the one who replaced him shortly, Rose, also suffered the same setback. It's until of recent that now they have a PS in place, who is also still settling down and understanding the dynamics. And now recently there is a new commissioner lady, who actually I had a conversation with Peter Omodoi, said we need to shuttle diplomacy there. As a minister, we go to her and talk a lot about the engagements and bring her in the limelight. Such that once she now has the letter before her, then she understands what to talk about.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what has kind of delayed the process. Even on our side, we got new management in place, but they are now already oriented to the issues because it's now coming to almost, this is June, about July, we had new ministers and the new PS. And from the background of militarism, you understand that. So we needed also time to take them through the issues, and especially to also accept that these things, nobody has a monopoly over them, and bring them on board. Because also when they landed, they were questioning, what are these people doing? For us in the ministry, what is police doing here? Go back to the police. What are the issues? Well, those are issues of the military. At one time, when we developed fears, we thought they were going to bring the soldier there. And up to now, we're not very sure still, because there are more soldiers coming into the institution, even the other side of police. Also, the other side of police, where we also come from, there is a lot of militarization, and you can imagine now the people who sit in the boardrooms to make decisions are almost all military. But time, slowly by slowly, they are beginning to understand and change their focus. Our PS is very accommodative and tolerant. He's a soldier, but with that wider lens. So taking them on, you have to take them on gradually. Because we write yes, sometimes they end at their desks, then they need more information besides. And you know these are people with a security background. Sometimes even they do background check on some of these things, because we work with the CSOs. In fact, there is a time when we thought now we can't even talk about CSOs. That time, you know, when we really cracked on them. And we now said, now, who are we going to work with? Because each time you bring out the aspects, you're the people working with these people. What information are you sharing across? So that is also an environment that we've been actually working with. Not that we've been keeping quiet about all these issues, but we've been slowly by slowly making them to appreciate and understand. Yeah.
Yes, okay. We appreciate so much the efforts by the conflict early warning and early response unit in internal affairs in pushing for the peace policy, and also making us as civil society access the draft peace policy in itself, and involving the civil society in the efforts to make sure that the peace policy is popularized and is out. We need to just continue till we see something. We will never give up as Ugandans. Maybe we can also hear from the perspective of the peace mediators, what roles are we playing, the women on ground? Conflicts cannot only be resolved somewhere else, but also on ground we need to do something. And also, as conflicts are happening in the Karamoja region, we don't need to sit to wait until the peace policy is passed to resolve the conflict there. Something has to be done. What role are we playing? You're welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much. The role that we are that we shall play the role of implementation once it is approved, awareness, then also ownership of the policy. Because if we don't own the policy, it's like it's useless for us. Then we shall also have door-to-door campaigns, and MDD, music, dance, and drama. You know, our people, when they believe also and they understand so much from that. And when we are going to disseminate, we shall also be having dialogues, community dialogues, land ownership and property, awareness of land. For us, the other side, we are talking of cattle rustling. Issues of land is also coming up. We also need awareness on that. And then unpacking to the peace policy to the grassroots. Because we shall talk of peace policy, but when we don't unpack to them and tell them this is what is there on ground, this is what the policy says, they will not understand. Then also popularize the peace policy, and then we also need visibility, IEC materials, so that we have them and they see this is what we need, the referral pathways, we have them, so that it can support the peace policy. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Ross is going to share with us the CSO perspective. What role will the civil society play in ensuring that the peace policy is passed and implemented?
Yes, like you said, we've already been in there, we are still in there, but we need, I think, to carry a heavier weight this time to make way, to ensure that the policy is completed and passed. But at the same time, awareness is very key, and then lobbying for the passing, implementation and resourcing this policy. I took note of Florence's concern about the working with the other brothers and sisters in the other security sector. I think capacity building would be very key, because sometimes, you know, people are trained in different ways on a few things, and they, like I said, when my colleague was asked at the National Development Plan meeting, what are you doing here? I mean, this is a citizen of Uganda. Whose development plan are you doing? Not for citizens of Uganda. You know, if you really know what you are doing, you wouldn't ask that question. But maybe because they may not be sure of where they should start and where they should stop. But they need to understand all these things. We need to create awareness. And as we talk of creating awareness, we've been working for many years. I've personally been in this organization for over 25 years. There was a time we were going to do a training in Moroto, and as usual, gender things and whatever, 1325 was still fresh, and I said, okay, let's take by then she was a former member of parliament, I just left that parliament. Let's take her to train in the local language so that don't have. She didn't know anything about 1325, and she had been in parliament for a term. So as we talk of awareness, and we want to pass a policy, let's look at our parliamentarians. You know, there's a lot going on, more allowances, more salaries, which all of us need, but they need also more capacity, so that they can help us. And the committee is good enough, but we need even the whole parliament, at least starting with the worker. I don't know how
actually, the peace policy itself also is talking so much of capacity building. Yes, because you're not going to involve people who don't know.
So that is something that we can also play a role.
Okay, thank you so much. I would like to re-echo the values and principles that are put down, spelled clearly in the National Peace Policy. We've in sharing the role that we need to play to make sure that the peace policy is brought to life and is actually promoting a culture of peace. There are roles and there are values and principles that are stipulated in the policy. One is national ownership. Without the awareness that we are talking about, the country will not own, the citizens will not own, but everyone needs to own this policy. Then partnership and mutual accountability is also one of the principles. We have a principle of substantive gender, equality in conflict prevention and peace building efforts. So, as the people who are on ground and who are in the country who can make sure that the peace policy deals and is addressing issues of gender issues, we also need to make sure that it is mainstreamed here and it has to be put in place and in practice. Then the rights-based approach, ensuring that human rights is observed for everybody just because they are human beings is an aspect of this policy. Then inclusiveness. Inclusiveness is one principle. Child and adolescent and youth involvement. We realize that at times the youth are left out, and the children are left out. Then in the Karamoja context, you see that most of the people who are engaged there are the youth, the Karachuna, meaning that the youth do not have to be left out. Conflict sensitivity. In doing any peace building related work, we have to ensure that it does not cause more conflicts. Utilization and building of the national capacity and mechanisms in Uganda is one of the principles embedded in here. Then partnership, coordination and coherence. It is not a one man's take it all or one size fits all, but it has to be done in partnership, because we all know that peace is something that has to be achieved in collaboration. No entity, maybe we cannot say that only Ministry of Internal Affairs will do it all, or only the civil society, or Human Rights Commission, or the women on ground. But everybody has a role to play in ensuring that this peace policy is passed and is implemented, and then peace is achieved. We all have to embrace peace peacefully. Then the aspect of monitoring and evaluation has also to be taken keenly. Thank you so much for the discussion. I would like to share and close the session. We are almost 13 minutes into the closure of the program. I would like to say something about the project that has funded our being here. The Peace Center is in partnership with the Uganda Women's Network, that is UWONET, implementing a project which is Women at the Center of Sustaining Peace in Uganda. The project is an 8-month project running from January to August 2022. It's being implemented in Moroto, Kotido, and Kampala. And I said that the partners implementing it is the Peace Center, which is taking a lead in Kampala and in Kotido, and UWONET is taking a lead in Moroto. It's funded by the Embassy of Ireland. And the project goal is to promote implementation of the Uganda 3rd National Action Plan on women, peace and security at national level and in Karamoja, particularly in the conflict-affected Kotido and Moroto districts. And we are looking at citizens being able to being aware. We are looking at citizens being informed and more aware about the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325, National Action Plan 3. That was developed by the government of Uganda and the civil society. Uganda has implemented the National Action Plan 1 and 2 and is currently implementing the National Action Plan 3. And also looking at having the peace policy popularized and put back on the table and passed. Because we've seen that the peace policy has stalled since 2000. This is now, the process started in the year 2000. We are still in the process, and up to now, that we have that draft which was developed around 2015. But from 2015 to date, it is still in a draft form. So the project is looking at having the peace policy brought back on the table, and also having the National Action Plan implemented, and the citizens are aware, and everyone playing their role in the implementation of this peace policy and the national action plan. As a country, we adopted the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 and looking at the key pillars, which is prevention, participation, and protection, and relief and recovery. So as a country, we are doing this through the National Action Plan 1325. If you go to our social media pages, you will see you will follow us, and we are popularizing the National Action Plan. We have so far done the popularization through a multimedia campaign which is going on right now, and we have also done trainings that is on peace building, looking at the National Action Plan 1325, looking at the peace policy. The women down there in Kotido already know about the peace policy. We've also held talk shows that has unpacked the National Action Plan, the Uganda National Action Plan 3, and the peace policy, deep in the grassroots. And on social media, we are reaching out to the wider coverage. Those who could listen to the radio have been able to listen to the radio. Those who are able to follow on the other social media platforms are also following. We have registered a wide following and interaction with the posts. As government, as civil society, you can also continue joining us and following and giving ideas on how it can be, how we can push for the peace policy and have it passed, and how the National Action Plan can be popularized further. We have also reprinted the copies of the popular version that we are disseminating widely. We are looking at having it in different languages and shared widely. We have already trained, I said, a group of women peace mediators. In Kotido we trained 50, and in Moroto we also trained 50. We are yet to train the women peace champions at national level. The training is also already scheduled. In 2 weeks' time they will be trained. And we will continue to have influential meetings, that is strategically to push for the peace policy and ensure the National Action Plan is implemented and monitored effectively. As the Peace Center, we call upon all of you to play your role, contribute to the implementation of the Uganda National Action Plan 3 and the peace policy, because it is an instrument that is going to guide us as a country, that is going to enable us see the peace that we want to see as a country. I take the opportunity to thank all the presenters in the house, Ms. Florence Chirabira from Ministry of Internal Affairs, Conflict Early Warning. We thank you so much for the role you're playing in this. Ms. Betty Ndago from Uganda Human Rights Commission, we also thank you so much for the far we've gone. We started with the National Steering Committee and we are moving on. Even if you have moved to Jinja, you're always able to come. She's still a member, she continues coming to the committee. And our very own from the civil society, Rose Otieno, we also thank you so much for pushing this and taking a lead. Even if you ask why are you here, you've always remained there. Let's be there. Jessica, thank you so much for going far and wide to represent the voice of the women of Kotido, and Karamoja in general, and the women of Uganda in the Greater Horn of Africa, G40, and in other aspects.
United States.
In the US, the voice is heard everywhere. We are amplifying voice and enhancing the capacity of women in peace building. I also take the opportunity to thank our funder, that is the Embassy of Ireland, and all the other partners that we've worked with, the members of the National Steering Committee, the the district peace committees at district level, they have contributed. The women networks have also contributed a lot towards the implementation of the peace, towards peace building, but collectively we are saying that we need a framework that will guide peace building and conflict transformation in the country at large. Thank you so much for listening.